Do you need help protecting your finances as you enter retirement? David Dickens of KC Financial Advisors has got you covered. Welcome to the Cover Your Assets KC podcast.
We've got a good episode for you today on the Cover Your Assets KC podcast. I'm Walter Storholt alongside David Dickens. He is, of course, the president and wealth advisor of KC Financial Advisors, serving you throughout Overland Park and the Kansas City region, as well as beyond. If you've got any questions, never hesitate to reach out. On today's program, we're going to talk about something very, very straightforward, at least from a specific type of conversation. We're going to talk about ex-spouse benefits from Social Security and whether you should wait, not wait. Usually we know the answer is to not wait for taking action and doing things. So we're going to explore what that conversation usually looks like in the office when somebody meets with David. David, great to be with you this week. I hope you are just holding steady and off to a good start this summer.
I am. The humidity has certainly arrived in Kansas City, but I guess it's mid-June, so it's kind of what you'd expect. So kind of roll with the punches.
That's right. Exactly. Well, looking forward to this conversation with you today because I think it'll be really helpful to people who are going through this situation. And this was inspired a bit because of a conversation that you had in the office recently, right?
It is. This has come up. This probably comes up twice a year for me. But it's always kind of shocking to know that people really don't know how this works. So I thought it might be situational for a particular listener, but it might also be something that you'd want to forward this podcast to a person you know who finds themselves in this situation. So hopefully it's, I'll bet we cover this thing in 10 minutes or so, and hopefully it's valuable to somebody that's listening today, or you can forward it on to somebody who you think might benefit.
Perfect. Well, the headline said it all. Don't wait to claim ex-spouse benefits from Social Security. So first of all, David, who would be eligible for a conversation like this in the first place?
So unfortunately, statistics would tell you that about 50% of marriages in America end up in divorce. So I was just meeting with a lady she is currently divorced, and she was totally unaware that she could go get benefits based on her ex-husband's work record. So who's eligible? Well, you have to have been married to your ex-spouse for at least 10 years. And then you currently have to be single. So if you got remarried, then this isn't applicable to you. And you need to be at least 62, and preferably full retirement age, which is somewhere between 66 and 67. But you have to be at least 62. And your ex-spouse must be living, because otherwise you would claim, believe it or not, I have a lot of people that don't know this either, but you can get widow benefits, which are even higher than what we're talking about here. But to get the benefit we're talking about today, your ex-spouse must be living. And then I guess the other little twist is you're eligible even if your former spouse, your ex-spouse, hasn't retired yet. Let's say they're working and they're 67 or 68 or 69. That doesn't matter as long as if you've been divorced for them for more than 2 years, it doesn't matter whether they are claiming or not. So that's who is eligible. And so that's relatively straightforward.
All right, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. What about, let's talk more specifically about the benefits. So what does the benefit look like when you're talking about ex-spouse Social Security drawing?
Okay, so just like if you were currently married, your benefit would be 50% of your former spouse's benefit. And so let's say you were a working spouse and your benefit on your own record is higher than 50% of your ex-spouse's. Well, it wouldn't make any sense to do this. The whole file and suspend thing, which used to be able to play some games with Social Security, but that got changed around in 2019 or 2020. So there's no way to file and suspend for your own benefits. Once you file for benefits, it's the higher of your benefit based on your work record or 50% of your former spouse's benefit. And the benefit is reduced if you start before your full retirement age, just like claiming on your own benefit. And if you remarry, then this benefit goes away. So, but the one thing that I think is helpful to know in this situation is, and most people know, most of our listeners would know, that if you wait past your full retirement age, up to age 70, your benefit continues to increase by roughly 8% a year the longer you wait. But if you're looking at your ex-spouse benefit, that never gets any bigger than what it's going to be at your full retirement age. So there is a benefit to waiting from 62 to, let's say, 67 or 66 and a half or whatever your full retirement age is. There is a benefit to waiting up until your full retirement age. But past that, there is no benefit for waiting. So you're just leaving money on the table if you don't claim that ex-spouse benefit at your full retirement age.
Very good. And I think that's just a really good scene setter. Eligible, who is it? And then what's the benefit going to look like? But what is then the impact on the ex-spouse? And maybe if they've remarried their current spouse, does this end up kind of affecting them negatively in some way?
Yeah, so that's always an interesting conversation, whether you're talking with it's not a gender specific thing, but whether you're talking to the male or the female, everybody's always a little bit worried about what that's going to do to the other side of the table. So the answer is it has absolutely no impact. So let's say that the ex-spouse we're talking about here is a female and her ex-husband has remarried. Well, he continues to get the benefits that he is supposed to get, and it doesn't matter if his ex-spouse claims or not. And his current wife gets her benefits just like she was going to get anyway, even if there was no ex-spouse benefit. So in that way, you could have three people claiming on the work benefit record of one particular, the spouse who was the higher earner of the three. And for that matter, if your ex-spouse has been married and divorced again, then that other ex-spouse may be able to qualify based on the eligibility requirements we talked about earlier. That ex-spouse may be able to qualify as well. So if you ever wonder why Social Security is having difficulty staying solvent, it could have to do with things like this, but it's a really good benefit nonetheless if you find yourself in the ex-spouse situation.
All right, David, this has been very helpful. I think when you were visiting before the podcast, and we were chatting a little bit earlier, you told me a funny story about Johnny Carson and his numerous ex-wives. I'm curious, do you want to tell that story? This must wrap into Social Security in some way, shape, or form.
It does, and it's a real life example that it lays it out real nicely for everybody. But it has occurred to me over the last 4 or 5 minutes that some of our listeners probably have no idea who Johnny Carson is. So, which is weird. So everybody, if you listen to these podcasts long enough, you know I'm 65 years old. Johnny Carson was the guy he was the late night entertainment before we ever knew who Jay Leno was.
Yeah.
And so Johnny Carson was really, really good at his job. Super high ratings. Everybody tuned in to see him. He wasn't quite so good at his husband jobs, evidently, because he had 3 divorced wives and a 4th wife that was with him until he died. So the way this lines out is the first wife he was married to for more than 10 years. His second wife, however, they were only married for 9 years. His third wife, they were married for more than 10 years. And his 4th wife, they were married up until his death. And at that point, it doesn't matter if they were married 2, 3, 6, 8, or 10 years. She was his current wife. So the way that rolled out was that his first, third, and 4th wives got to claim their ex-spouse. It was his 4th wife just got to claim her spousal benefits. But 3 of his 4 wives or ex-wives got to claim. And then when he died, they got to claim survivor benefits as well. And what that means is they didn't just get half of his benefit, like a spousal benefit. They got the entire benefit that he was earning on his date of death. So including all the cost of living increases over his lifetime. But that unlucky second wife, who was only married to him for 9 years, she never was able to claim an ex-spouse benefit. And she didn't get to claim a survivor benefit once he died. There are only 4 rules involved in whether or not you can claim. And so if you find yourself as an ex-spouse, I think it's really important to figure out what is that benefit, and is it worth claiming? I do sometimes get the question, well, how do I know? I don't even know where my ex-spouse is. And so I guess the final thing, kind of wrap this up, is you don't need to know where your ex-spouse is or how much that benefit is going to be. The Social Security Administration knows exactly what that is. You don't have to find him. You don't have to notify him. There's no reason that he even has to know that you're claiming benefits on his record. All you need to do is have a copy of your divorce decree, and you need to call Social Security and explain that you're interested in exploring ex-spouse benefits, and I have my divorce decree in hand, and they'll take it from there.
Great layout of all of this, David. I know that it can be, depending on how fresh a divorce is, it can be a very emotional time. And so if you're one of those people that falls into that category where this happens close to retirement and you're wondering this question, that can make it even more difficult to navigate and figure out all on your own. But even if it's sometime well in the past, make sure you're getting the intricacies right and that you understand those moving pieces. And David can help do that as part of the complete planning review process. And if you'd like to go through that process on your own, it starts with a very simple conversation about where you are now and what it's going to take to get you to where you need to be to accomplish your retirement and financial goals as you move into the future. So if you got questions about something like this, ex-spouse benefits from Social Security, it might be that specific, or it might be just more broad. Hey, I need to pick a retirement date, but I'm not really sure how to go about doing it. Those are the kinds of questions David's answering each day in the office, and usually it's one of those kinds of questions that sparks the planning process. So if you've got something like that on your mind, don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach David by calling 913-317-1414. That's 913-317-1414. Or go online to coveryourassetskc.com, and you can find that contact info in the description of today's show. Well, David, thank you for all the help on the program today. Much appreciated, and we'll talk again next week.
I'll look forward to that, Walter. Thanks.
All right, sounds good. That's David Dickens. I'm Walter Storholt. We'll see you next time right back here on Cover Your Assets, KC.
Investment advisory services offered through ChangePath LLC, a registered investment advisor. ChangePath LLC and KC Financial Advisors are separate companies.